Hello and welcome to the somewhat delayed session of mapping questions. In 2022 Civil Service Examination, in History Optional, Paper 1, UPSC asked 50 marker compulsory mapping question. I will discuss all these slides with you today very briefly. It is a very important session because what I personally feel is the most authentic listing of the sites that have been asked by UPSC. Firstly, a few comments. As general, UPSC this time has given, not as general actually, UPSC this time has given a map which has state boundaries. In 2020, UPSC has given state boundaries. 2021, it did not give. In 22, again, they gave the state boundaries. Unfortunately, this map is quite old. There is no separate Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. I don't know why there is no such thing. Anyway, what will happen next year, we don't know. So my Hidayat recommendation would be to go for preparing two maps for each era, one with your own grid network and other with state boundaries to be on safer side. The second point that I would like to add is that how accurate are these sites? We have no idea. UPSC sometimes have in the past given very far off sites. Manda in Jammu was given in somewhere of North Kashmir. So it seems that UPSC itself is not very keen on exact location, 1 mm here or 1 mm there. So don't do those fights. The site which fits most appropriately in the given title, given description, that should be your site. Even if it is 2-3 mm here and there, it is not a very primary thing, as long as the state boundaries are not crossed, possibly. Look at the sites overall. This side you have 6 sites in South India, 6-7 sites. Generally, that has been the ratio over last 10 years. 6 to 7 sites south of Narmada, 1 site on the eastern part, either in Bangladesh or in northeast part of India. 2 sites generally come from Pakistan, Afghanistan region, and that ratio has been maintained this year. So the map is not very different. If you look at number of prehistoric sites versus historic sites, that ratio has quite a bit changed over a decade. Generally, 10 years ago, out of 20, 10 sites used to come from prehistoric era and 10 from historic era. But now you see, you have around 6 sites from prehistoric and 14 sites, sometimes 12 sites, 13 sites from historic era. That ratio has changed a bit. So the sites with which we are really worried are the sites which are less asked nowadays. This year, they asked 3 sites which are UNESCO World Heritage Sites, 2 in India, 1 in Bangladesh, and there is 1 site, the 4th site, for which the demand is being made that it should be made into UNESCO World Heritage Site. Otherwise, the sites are not that difficult apart from 2-3 sites. If you are able to attempt 16 sites in this map, it is a very good and decently good attempt. There are 2 sites which are extremely difficult, and so far I have seen nobody has come up with the correct answer for those sites. 3-4 sites could be difficult for some people, for some other it could be easy, and a lot of sites are repetition, more than 10 of previous years. So let us look at them one by one. The first site is the Paleolithic site, Didwana, Nagaur district, Rajasthan, over here in Rajasthan, Didwana. Now, paleo sites are relatively less in number for us, so this is actually not a difficult site at all. Descriptions I have written over here for you. Descriptions are not difficult. I will not go much into description. Didwana is one of the important sites in Rajasthan, which is Paleolithic site. Site was quite simple. The second site is Mesolithic site over here in central southern UP, that is Sarai Nahar Rai. Why Sarai Nahar Rai? Because accurately it may not be the same location, but it says Mesolithic site with burials. And if you read our books, although it may have Damdama, Mahadaha and other sites nearby, for the purpose of burials, the most suitable and most appropriate site is Sarai Nahar Rai. And we have descriptions also, typical Mesolithic descriptions of geometric tools and other locations and campsite or not, all those things are there. Then you come to the third site, the Neolithic site in Kashmir, easiest site, lollipop site, Burzahom, and description is again a typical one, not difficult at all. It has been asked by UPSC multiple times in the past. The fourth site is in Balochistan, early village settlement. Over here, it is Nal. Now this site could be difficult for some people, but if you look at if you study early Hadappa very well, you come to know that from Mehergarh, crossing Kachi plain, how people came to southern part of this south of Kachi plain and created many village settlements. So early Harappan or early village settlement, that is just before Harappan, it has to be Nal. You have other sites also nearby, but Tal is the most appropriate one. You have Nal pottery, Nal ware also. Then you come to site number 5, that is over here in Kerala. It is Neolithic site. The site is Edakkal cave. Now this site I have seen many people struggled with. Some of you also come with a site called Palayanur, or somebody also came with some kind of Marayur cave. It is neither Palayanur nor Marayur cave, it is Edakkal cave. It is in Wayanad. It is very important for its location on the way to southern Karnataka and northwest Tamil Nadu from Malabar coast, and other things like historic era importance, petroglyphs, and all these things are there. It is Edakkal cave. Then you go for a next site, site number 6, that is over here on the west part of Bihar, just touching the boundary of UP, north of Ganga, on the banks of Ghagra river, that is Chirand. Again, it is not a difficult site at all. Chirand is not difficult site at all. And when it comes to Neolithic, Chalcolithic, we talk about the plant remains and other tools and settlements. Not easy, not difficult at all. Then you have seventh site is in Gujarat, most simple, that is Dholavira. It is a UNESCO site and it has been asked by UPSC multiple times in the past in prelims and mapping both, and also in the mains question. So no point in discussing that further. Site number 8 is a megalithic burial site south of this part, south of site number 9. It is Maski. Nearby you have Brahmagiri, you also have Tekkalkota, Sanganakallu, etc. If you go by exact location, it should ideally be Brahmagiri. But if you go by better megalithic burial site, the most famous, most well known, it could be Maski. But if you give any of them, it is completely fine. We have Nanjot Lahiri's famous book that talks in detail about the prehistoric antecedents of the region in which Ashoka gave a lot of inscriptions. The region had already been trade for generations, for centuries for local people. So Maski. Then you go to site number 9 in deep south, that is this second Sangam place, Kapadapuram. Now this site, is nowhere found in any map. In neither NCERT or IGNOU or Upinder Singh, I have not seen this Kapadapuram site located anywhere, but we know it from description. When we study Sangam literature, we know the first Sangam happened in ancient Madurai, second Sangam in Kapadapuram, and third Sangam in today's Madurai, which is the capital of Pandyan kings. The first and second Sangam happened at the places which are possibly now submerged underwater. So I am myself not sure कि Kapadapuram hai ye nahi hai. But anyway, second Sangam may be historical, may not be historical, those things go on. But from literature, even without looking at the map, by the word place of second Sangam, you should be able to quickly write Kapadapuram. Then you have next site, earliest Satvahana capital over here. Now, the moment you see Satavahan capital, you write Amaravati. This is a little confusing question that UPSC has asked you if you are aware of the things. That the origin of Satavahanas, was it on the eastern coast or on the western coast? It was an old debate. It was almost settled that they originated somewhere in the western coast and then they shifted after their first half of the dynastic rule on the eastern side. So the earliest capital, sometimes you go in Telangana inside also, you have Kotalingala, sometimes you have Pratishthan, and then Amaravati becomes a major capital afterwards. But anyway, the location is of Amaravati, so we end up writing Amaravati. But if you have to be even more accurate, it is not even Amaravati. It is Dharni Kota or Dhanya Kataka, rice bowl. So Dhanya Kataka, Dharni Kota was the name of the capital, and it has a stupa called Amaravati Stupa. Later on, the city became also Amaravati, but that is the original name. Then you have site number 11, place of inscribed statue of Ashoka. This is a very simple site asked by UPSC in prelims earlier. A complete page box given by Upinder Singh in her book on this issue. The site is Kanaganahalli. It is not Kanganahalli. It is Kanaganahalli if you see the spelling accurately. But anyway, and about this site only, you have demand of it becoming a UNESCO World Heritage Site by many people now. Then you go to site number 12 over here. Now, site number 12, first Gupta hoard coin Again, the location might not give away its entire import, but the moment you read first Gupta Hodkan, you ought to know it is Kalighat. Kalighat. The story, the last year actually a book came by Rupa Publication on the story of Indian Oriental thinkers. In that, how the first discoveries of scriptures, first discoveries of inscription, first discoveries of coins were made in late 18th and the early part of 19th century, those were given. There I came to know across this site Kalighata. It is not any other site. It is also not Chandraketu Gad. Because Chandraketu Gad is a typically famous site which is not famous for coins. Chandraketu Gad is famous for terracotta sculptures in otherwise urban mass manufacturing craft industrial sense. But when it comes to the first Gupta Horde coin, it is by default Kalighat. You don't have to look at the map also. Now, the most difficult site I felt this year, where everybody has made some mistake, is site number 13 over here. Horde of metal sculptures. Now, the moment you see metal sculpture and a site is in Bihar, you are tempted to write Sultanganj, because Sultanganj is known for a huge standing statue of Buddha in bronze, which today is in Birmingham Museum. But it is not Sultanganj. Sultanganj is not Horde site. Horde मतलब एक जगह कई सारे मिले हैं. The site actually is Kurkihar. Now, how do we know? See, Kurkihar has been in news for a long time. In 2018, we had found a news where a lot of bronze sculptures which were found in Kurkihar Horde but kept in Patna Museum were stolen. It became a national news. This year, 2022, just a couple of months before the exam, a huge bronze sculpture which was stolen from Kurkihar and went into the Western countries. It was smuggled, was brought back to India. So it was in national news again. Now, what is Kurkihar? If you see, in Bihar, the most famous site for bronze murtikala, bronze sculpture making in the early medieval era is Nalanda. Nalanda bronzes are very popular in the Pala era and thereabouts. Now, when Nalanda site declined as bronze production center, the craftsmen seem to have shifted to Kurkihar, and Kurkihar emerged under influence of Nalanda as the chief center of bronze sculpture production in the 10th and 11th century. So the answer here is Kurkihar and not Sultanganj. And most importantly, Sultanganj comes on the eastern side. The location given is in central Bihar. So we know that by location also it has to be Kurkihar. But most importantly, Kurkihar is mentioned in NCERT. In bronze chapter, they have given Kurkihar Horde. They talk of Chausa Horde. They talk of Arcot Horde, etc. 3-4 hordes of bronze they have given. NCERT has given the name of Kurkihar. But anyway, let's go to the site number 14. You have ancient fort Bhrigukacha, Barigasa or Bhadoj, especially throughout the ancient India, but especially in the post-Mauryan era, and the descriptions are well known. So I don't need to go into Bhrigukacha's details, but we have some points given over here. Then site number 15 over here, oldest Jesuit church, Basilica of Bom Jesus, Goa. Now you see, may be Kanaganahalli, may be Bhrigukacha, may be some other sites, and may also be Basilica of Bom Jesus. UPSC has started asking those sites which were asked in last 5 years in prelims. तो prelims में जो हिस्ट्री के साइट पूछे गए हैं 5, 10, 20 साल में, सारे देख के रखो, इसमें साइट रिपीट हो रहे हैं मैपिंग में. So you have Basilica of Bom Jesus, Goa. Site number 16. Now site number 16 is Afghanistan. It is little tricky. Center of Gandhar art. Now people sometimes have some kind of confusion about how to identify sites over this part, because there is a huge cluster of multiple sites. You have multiple sites, but as far as the Gandhar art is concerned, we are again not very in difficult position. It has to be Begram. Begram Hold is very famous from the Kushan era and even a little bit earlier. Well, it is not Bamiyan. Now Bamiyan, Buddha is very famous. Bamiyan was also a very important commercial center on the Silk Route. in the Kushan era. But Bamiyan Buddha was constructed after Kushanas, quite after Kushanas, during late Kushana 5th century. By 5th century, Gandhar school has already almost disappeared, degraded definitely, almost disappeared. We have it lingering somewhere in 6th and 7th century also in some part of Kashmir, some parts of what we call as Pundukistan, etc. But Bamiyan, Buddha do not represent Gandhar school. They are in late Gandhar era, and Bamiyan itself became important when Gandhar was an important center of culture, when Gandhar art has already almost collapsed. Kushanas were gone. So answer should not be Bamiyan. Rather, the most famous site in this region, which talks of Gandhar art, is Begram. Then you have other sites. Buddhist monastery, point number 17. It is a very easy site. It is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That is Somapura Mahavihar. Yeah, place number 18, a place of earliest Vishnu temple over here. That is again simple Dashavatara temple, Devgad. You have all seen the photos. We see all architecture of the emergence of Nagara style from Gupta era. So you know this in Lalitpur district of UP. It is a very simple site. Site number 19, Shiva and Buddhist temple complex, Sirpur, Mahismand, Chhattisgarh. Again, it is a very easy site. UPSC has asked this site almost 3-4 times in last 10 years. Prepare it. For sites, the second thing you should do, apart from looking at the previous year questions, apart from looking at the previous year questions of prelims, is to look at the previous year questions of sites themselves. Out of 20 sites, almost 30-40% sites are repetition of what has been asked in the recent years. So, Sirpur is a very easy site. Then Dakshin Kosal. And site number 20 is Bhaza cave. You see, it is not Karle, it is Bhaza. Because earliest Chaitya Griha is the word. Now, Karle is more famous, even aesthetically more pleasing, more evolved architecture, and the same dot would also signify Karle. But the question is earliest Chaitya Griha, so it has to be Bhaza or Bhaze. It is not on the coast, so it will not be Kanheri. It is inside the coast on the Sahyadris, so it is in Pune district. Answer is Bhaze. So these are the sites, 20 sites. How to prepare for mapping, how should we strategize, what should be our pointers, etc. That we'll discuss separately in our class. Right now, this is the answer key. According to me, it is the most authentic one. Anyway, thank you.